Wow, hey, a lot of stocks are doing that.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. So, this market is crazy. So, like last night, futures got absolutely destroyed. This morning before open, we're seeing some of these growth stocks like break out, like DraftKings and run. DraftKings, like over like the past 30 seconds, just broke above its resistance level, and it's looking pretty good. But besides that, in terms of like geopolitics, like the whole Russia Ukraine situation is still looking really, really bad. RSX, which is the Russian ETF, is continuing to fall as expected. I mean, it's down 20% today, Tom. At the same time, we are seeing some of these defense stocks starting to fly up, which it's like, yeah, it's good for the stocks, but it's like, I'd rather not these defense stocks explode up. I'd rather just have the market chill out and have the growth stocks pop up.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, these defense stocks are starting to really run, and it was pretty surprising to see how much they pulled back towards market open, actually, with those big moves back down. But you're right. I mean, the growth stocks are having a day, Mike. Like RUN is up almost 9%, leading my watch list. We have DraftKings up as well. They're only up like almost 2%, but you can see their movement is looking very nice. They broke above their high of Friday, which is nice to see. So overall this morning, the market's actually not looking too bad. I know that the those futures gap down, but all morning the SPY has been slowly recovering back, and we are getting some nice green momentum at open. So hopefully we recover back up to those highs of Friday.
Yeah, that's true. And then check out Teladoc. This one is leading my watch list today. It is up almost 12%, and they have news with Amazon's Alexa. So basically, from the way I've read their article, it seems that, like, if you have Alexa, you can be like, hey, Alexa, I need to talk to a doctor, or, schedule a doctor appointment for me, or something along those lines, and then it will, like, automatically set up a meeting with you on Teladoc. That's from my understanding. But either way, Teladoc is in an industry that's growing rapidly. Their stock has been getting pummeled lately, but of course, when you have Amazon news, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, that's always big for a stock like that. And we can see they are flying up this morning. Of course, they're pulling back a little bit at market open, but man, they're going to open up like to over 10%. That's a really good thing to see. And anytime you're in with Amazon, as we know from the past, lots of stocks start to get a boost to the upside. So looking good for Teladoc, Mike. And even on like the max daily chart, looks like they're starting to form a pretty good bottom down here ever since those earnings came out.
True. So, Tom, we are seeing some of these growth plays really pop up. Like we already talked about with Teladoc and DraftKings and Run even. Run's up almost 10%. Zoom's on the uptrend today. Square, Fiverr, Chewy, stuff like that. While we are seeing these stocks pop up, and while that is a great sign, we still have some major earnings later in the week and later today. Like we have, Zoom later today, and I know you have the whole list, but I know we don't have companies like Apple and Amazon reporting today, but we have a lot of the growth stocks that are set to report.
Yeah, we do, like Zoom, Lucid, even Blink. I think that Lucid's going to be very interesting because they have a lot of issues with their production. And, if they end up reporting some pretty good numbers, that might be good for their stock. And, they are having a bit of a run up into those earnings. And same thing with Zoom. They're going to be very reliant, I think, on that outlook and on those on the guidance for the next 6 months or so. I think that's going to be very important for Zoom and Lucid both. So hopefully they report some good numbers, Mike. In Lucid's case, I hope the production comes in well. And with Zoom's case, obviously we want like more active users and stuff like that. So hopefully we see them come out with those nice numbers. And they are approaching a bit of an intraday resistance around like 130 here.
Good to know. And then, Tom, check out Upstart. This thing is up over 6% today. It is really blasting off right from open. I mean, it's looking pretty decent for like a short-term setup. I'm not seeing any specific news to this one, but it looks like it's just like running up with these other growth plays that have been beaten down a lot over the past couple months.
Yeah, it really is. And I'll tell you what, some of these stocks that had good earnings over the past few weeks are starting to do pretty good today, like Upstart, Enphase. I know that both of those stocks had decent earnings, and it looks like they're now starting to approach those levels that they had initially popped to. So I'm glad to see that out of some of these plays, Mike. It's really nice that they are recovering up in such a great way. I know that like Upstart, Affirm, and stocks like that have been really lagging behind here, and I really hope to see like AFRM, Upstart, and just all those like laggers just start to go back on the uptrend. I know that we've been waiting so long for it, and it looks like it's finally about to happen. Even Affirm's doing decent today. Obviously, they're not running up as much as some of the other ones, but their chart looks pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. What else do we have going on? It looks like, Lucid's looking pretty decent today. Plug. We're definitely seeing the growth stocks pop up. But how are some of these larger companies, maybe like Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, AMD, how are these like bigger companies looking?
Yeah, Tesla's looking pretty good. AMD is just actually right around even, but I will say their chart's looking pretty good. They did gap down this morning, and they're filling the gap back to the upside. Same thing with Apple. Apple's still in the red, but they're trying to fill that gap from earlier in the morning. They're kind of looking like more of like the S&P 500. The S&P had that gap down, and it's been trying to fill the gap all morning. I would say Apple and AMD are running more of like that. Same thing with Nvidia. It's also starting to fill that gap. So definitely not breaking out like the growth stocks, Mike, which is interesting. Maybe we're starting to see investors flow into some of these beaten down plays that probably have a higher return over the next year or two, percentage wise.
Oh, absolutely, Tom. No doubt about that. And I'm glad you brought that up because, of course we talk about DraftKings all the time, and, there's a lot of growth stocks out there. You don't have to love DraftKings like we do, but, let's say you're an investor out there and, maybe you've been eyeing up Palantir or Zoom or, Enphase or Teladoc or any growth stock. A lot of these growth stocks are down anywhere from like 50% to like 80% from their highs. So it's like, all right, if you have X amount to invest, are you going to be investing into, AMD that might be at like a decent value, might be at fair value? Or do you buy the dip on some of these growth stocks that are down significantly over the past couple months? And I think that we're really starting to see more money flow into these growth stocks. And I think that's pretty obvious because while you have, AMD, Apple, Nvidia that are holding up well, they're not doing bad at all. They're just holding up well. We're seeing some of these other plays that are really outperforming those bigger stocks. And, Square was a perfect example, but, even Run, Teladoc, Zoom, even DraftKings over the past couple days. But we will see.
Yeah, hopefully all these stocks continue, Mike. Like, it looks like they're starting to break out in some pretty good ways. Like Zoom, for example, they actually just got rejected at that 130 intraday resistance, but hopefully they end up breaking that later on. I'm sure that they'll have a good chance to with the way that they've ran today, and of course they have earnings later on. But yeah, it just seems like a lot of these stocks are also forming good supports. Like if we go look at some of the big solar stocks like Enphase, for example, you can see on the over the past couple days it's really breaking out. But on the daily chart, you can see it's kind of double bottoming down here, right around $120. Not looking too bad off that support. It's coming like back to the upside in a pretty good way here. I really like the setup with Enphase. I think it looks pretty solid. And then, of course, there's lots of other stocks like Teladoc moving like that also. Another one is going to be like these social media stocks like Twitter, Snapchat. They're also starting to move back up. So very interesting to see the whole growth sector turning around today, especially on a day, Mike, where we might have expected more volatility. I know that there's still stuff going on with Russia, but I actually did see some good news that they were holding talks. I should say that Ukraine and Russia were holding talks, so that's good to see. Maybe we'll see them come to like a conclusion soon.
Yeah, I doubt it. I think even the president of Ukraine said he doubted it, but you never know, Tom. Crazy things happen.
Yeah, and I know that Ukraine has been putting up a pretty big resistance so far. I know that there's been a few articles, and we can see there's like a Russian tank that's been destroyed here, and there's been a lot more tanks and Russian soldiers that have been hit pretty hard. I know there's been companies making like Molotov cocktails and giving them to civilian soldiers and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of crazy stuff coming out of Ukraine, Mike, and it seems like it. I think like a lot of analysts have said, Russia kind of expected to just kind of roll over Ukraine. They thought it was just a small country and that a lot of the people there would probably just join them. But it looks like, it's the exact opposite. They're putting up a pretty stiff resistance. And, I don't think that they're going to have an easy job to just occupy that country. Like if if the civilians keep up with this resistance, I don't think they'll stay very long, to be honest, because even the Russian soldiers are a little upset about it. You know, I know that a lot of them were lied to and were told that it was actually supposed to be just exercises.
Interesting. Very interesting. Alrighty, so shifting into just a quick check-in with the SPY. You know, I can see it's clearly popping up right now, but Tom, we've been in some, I guess you can say we've been in for some wild volatility over the past couple of months, and, you know, while the market's popping up right now, I'm not too convinced. You know, like, of course, I love to see the market pop up, and, you know, it really just helps, you know, just positive momentum across other stocks, but I don't know, I'm just not too convinced. I'm still on edge, and I feel like there's a decent chance that the market overall, not growth, I mean, anything can happen with growth stocks, but specifically like the SPY and QQQ, I feel like there's still a decent chance that, you know, I don't know, at least test maybe like 430, maybe 429 at some point today. Of course, that's just a shot in the dark, and no one knows 100%, but, you know, just looking back over like the past couple weeks, it seems like a lot of times, you know, we get at least like a late day sell-off.
Yeah, we actually have been lately. You know, sometimes we have a late day, you know, rise back to the upside, but it seems like that whenever the market's up like it is now, then we do see that sell-off. So I could see it happening too, Mike. You know, there's lots of big news still out there, and obviously the tensions have not stopped. I know that we've actually been increasing our sanctions as well as other countries. So it's been kind of insane. I actually saw a report over the weekend that the Robux, which is Roblox's digital currency, was actually worth more money than the Russian ruble at one point, because the ruble got destroyed over the weekend. I've been seeing reports that the ruble fell by over 30%. So that's a really bad thing for Russia. So who knows? You know, I know there's been a lot of bad news, so maybe Russia will come out with even crazier stuff. I know that Belarus was doing some stuff with like a nuclear war deal where like they're able to bring nukes into the country now or something. So definitely getting crazy, Mike. I would not be surprised if we saw that move back to the downside. Like you said, lately the market has been whipsawing all over the place. And if we see it up one morning, you know, by the end of the day, it seems like we're making new lows. So I wouldn't be surprised either. And 430 seems like a pretty safe level to get to.
Yep. Yeah, we have the VXX like trying to pop up right now. Like we could see VXX is definitely on that uptrend over the past couple minutes, while the market itself it's not tanking clearly. It's just like there's some sellers coming in. So I thought that was interesting. And, you know, throughout history, Tom, I feel like a lot of times when we point out when we have like the VXX and the SPY rising at the same time, a lot of times it doesn't end well.
Yeah, it doesn't. And then we have a lot of bank stocks in the red as well, like Bank of America, JP Morgan. They're all starting to sell off, actually, and they had some pretty bad gap downs that they just never recovered from. So it seems like all these stocks just going down are going to be adding to the downfall, I think, of the market here, which sucks. You know, I don't want to see the market go down, but in the end, you know, we're seeing a lot of the big stocks in the red. Even like Amazon is now in the red by like 1.1%, starting to get back to those pre-market lows. So definitely not good there. Even I know we talked about AMD and Nvidia, how they were holding up, but it looks like they're starting to turn back over now. So definitely be careful, guys. It looks like the market could start popping back, but we are seeing the growth stocks still do pretty well. I mean, I know Matterport still running up pretty decently. Enphase looking pretty good. So while those are still looking decent, it seems like a lot of the bigger stocks as well as the value stocks are going down, like the banks. Even Coca-Cola's in the red a pretty good amount today.
Interesting. I also just saw on the Discord on like the popular news tab that the Ukrainian presidential advisor said that talks with Russia are still ongoing. So I know you mentioned that earlier in the stream, so I figured I'd point it out because it is an update.
Yeah, that's good to hear that the talks are still going. You know, I know that it's better than them just, you know, getting in a spat and then obviously having some type of escalation from that. But I think it's a good thing that they're talking. You know, it's obviously good to see them having some type of discourse rather than just a straight up invasion. So hopefully we see something come out of this. And like we said, it's probably unlikely that anything good will happen. So I don't know. Another thing just came in through the live news tab that says Ukraine is not ready to surrender or capitulate
Capitulate,
to
Tom.
Russia.
Capitulate.
Capitulate to Russia. Yeah, pretty much just like let Russia capture them is what that means. So it's good to see that they're not ready for that. You know, obviously, I know that the civilians are holding out, and like we've seen, there's pictures of some pretty bad stuff. And I know the Russia economy is starting to do terrible. Like, look at the RSX making new lows as we're speaking, Mike, down 30% now. This is insane.
Yeah. The Spy's holding up well, so we'll see. But yeah, Ukraine's basically saying we are not surrendering, and they're definitely putting up a fight. I'm curious, like, if Putin thought, like I know we're still very, very early into the invasion, but I'm curious if Putin thought that he was just gonna roll through Ukraine. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like curious, and we'll never truly know the answer, but like, I'm just really curious, like, if he was expecting this type of fight. And like I said, I know we're still early and there's a lot of variables with this whole situation, but I mean, Tom, if you would have told me, maybe like 6 months ago that, we're going to see Russia straight up invade Ukraine and all that stuff, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think anyone would have. It's an insane situation, and at the time we probably would have been called conspiracy theorists, like the way things have been lately. So who knows? But yeah, I know that it's a crazy situation, Mike, and we don't see it happen all the time. Like obviously back in like the 50s and the 40s, and obviously back a long time ago, we saw countries invade other countries obviously a lot more often, but now it's unheard of, and it's very interesting. And there's honestly been a lot of talks about now other countries starting to invade, like China invading Taiwan, Mike. And, we've been seeing the China stocks start to move back to the downside. I know like BABA is down again today, almost 3% now, definitely not looking the best. And it's not good, like we always say, when it rains, it pours. And, like if Russia is able to go into Ukraine without much resistance other than just sanctions, I mean, what's going to stop China from going into Taiwan or in like taking over Hong Kong or, like stopping any country from doing anything like that? It just, it's not a good thing that he's not meeting any resistance really as far as any other military force. Like nobody's helping Ukraine. Of course, they're sending him money and they're sending him weapons, but, we're not seeing any other troops roll in.
Yeah. Alrighty. So let's see. In terms of some breakouts happening right now, I don't know if you saw this, Tom, but Square actually just broke out above its resistance from Friday.
Wow, this is actually looking explosive. That resistance was pretty big, especially the pre-market level. So it's really running up there. We're almost at $125 at this point, and it's really like running. Look at the daily chart. We're up a lot from those lows of $82 before earnings, and I'm glad to see it, Mike. I know that Square was beaten down a lot, and it's always good to see that Jack Dorsey came in and is going to focus more time on Square. I think it'll be great for him. They're getting more into the blockchain and obviously into crypto, so hopefully they keep going up. I think they're going to be a pretty good company here, and I think that it's interesting to see that Square and Twitter are kind of in the same setup, and it's good to see that Square is outperforming Twitter back to the upside. I love to see that because Dorsey left Twitter to focus on Square, so I'm happy to see that.
How's DWAC doing? You mentioned Twitter, so I'm curious.
Yeah, they're actually down today, 0.6%. I will say Truth Social came out, and we were able to see it on the iOS App Store, but obviously you're still not allowed in. At least I'm not. I know that most people I know aren't allowed in either. The only person I know who was in, Mike, was Mason. That's the only person I know who was able to get in, but it says I'm number 221,000 or something like that on the wait list, and who knows? I know they were scheduled to launch sometime in March, so maybe we won't even be allowed in till then.
Yeah, we'll see. Crowdstrike is also breaking out. I don't know if you saw that one. CRWD. We're still below that $200 resistance, but over like the past couple days, this thing went from 153 all the way up to highs of 192.
That's insane, Mike. I know Crowdstrike has been a very popular stock over the past couple of years, and it's in that cybersecurity sector, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that they've been talked about a lot compared to like Datadog and different companies like that. And it's good to see that they're getting back up there. I'm glad to see it. They're actually getting really close to a big resistance level. So maybe we'll break out above like 193.50 here pretty soon. And if we do, hopefully we run back up towards 200. I know that we're pretty close to that. And they're going to have earnings coming up too, which is going to be huge for them. But the way that they're moving, Mike, gives me some hope because they're bouncing pretty well off support and they're following the growth sector up in a major way. So as long as that sector continues, I could see Crowdstrike doing well. But I know this stock has been very popular, Mike, and look at how high that IV is. I think that shows how much volatility has been happening with this one.
No doubt. All right, Tom. Well, what stocks are you watching right now? I know that we have some big earnings later in the week. I know the market's been crazy, but like, what are you watching?
Yeah, Lucid after hours is going to be huge to me. I think that these production numbers are going to be very important for Lucid. But then also it's just going to be important for even other EV companies because obviously, like if Lucid's having issues, it's probably not going to mean it's not going to be looking good for other EV companies trying to, break onto the market either. So hopefully we see Lucid come out with some good numbers. I know that's going to be very important. Like we talked about earlier, Zoom is going to be important as well with their subscriber numbers and monthly active users and stuff like that. So hopefully they report some good growth here. I know we just got through that winter quarter, that included December, January, and February. So maybe we'll see some good numbers as people were inside. So that might be good news for Zoom. But yeah, I mean, I'm really watching some of these oil plays still, Mike. I know that Exxon and Mobil is just not really doing anything today, even with crude oil moving up. Crude oil over the weekend ran all the way up to $99, and now it's all the way back down to 95. But we had a pretty good gap up with crude futures last night. So it's going to be interesting. I know that this situation has been expected to make oil rise, but in the end, oil's been honestly just consolidating like right around $100. So we'll have to see if it can continue or not. I hope it doesn't. Obviously the gas prices have been insane. I've been seeing stuff like over in Los Angeles, Mike, where gasoline is like $6 a gallon, and I'm like, that just blows my mind. I know I'm in Missouri, which is one of the cheapest gasoline states in the country, so I'm not seeing it quite as bad. But man, to see some of these people paying like $5 a gallon, $6 a gallon, that's just insane to me. And I know that even the gasoline futures have been going crazy. Like I'm looking at /RB on the daily chart. Look at gasoline on the daily, like it's starting to really break out actually.
Well, so yeah, like commodities have definitely been on the rise, like you pointed out, oil. But like, how are like gold futures and just like the precious metals? Because I actually saw news over the weekend that Russia has been buying up gold, but it looks like gold isn't moving too much, like at least today.
Yeah, it's not moving as much as oil is as far as the volatility, but it did still gap up over the weekend, which was nice. /GC, which is the gold futures, had a pretty big move Sunday night. We can see GLD is doing pretty well today. It's actually kind of approaching those pre-market levels around like 179. I know that 180 has been a pretty big resistance in the past, but lately it's been so volatile that these resistances don't even really matter too much. So definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, gold is it's doing decent. Like we said, it's not necessarily running up like it was last Thursday, but it's still doing well. And if these tensions continue, and if like the Russia and Ukraine talks don't go well, it could definitely help gold go up. And those reports of Russia buying it up, I think, are good. But at the same time, I mean, Russia's buying it, so I don't know what to make of that. Like maybe someone will try to sell it now to screw them or something. But
yeah,
that would be a funny scenario. But that probably won't happen to such a backed commodity. I know so many governments own gold.
Yeah, Jerry said maybe nobody else wants to buy gold if Russia is, but it's like,
oh yeah.
But it's like what if Russia came out and said, all right, we're buying water. Is no one else going to buy water? Like, I know gold and water are completely different, but it's like gold is just something that's been used it's been used for thousands and thousands of years. So like, while that is possible, I think it's very, very, very unlikely.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be used more and more because gold is actually a really good transistor. And like whenever you look at gold, it's actually used in a lot of computer parts. Like some of these graphics cards that NVIDIA makes uses them. Intel's processors actually have gold in them as well as AMD's. So it's very interesting to see how gold is used in these electronics as well. So it's definitely going to be used a lot. I know silver is also used a lot in those electronics. So that's good to see. And in the end, I mean, it's going to be used a lot in the future. And also, Mike, like I said, gold is just backed by a lot of different governments. I know China has been buying up a ton of gold over the years, as well as the United States hoards gold. So it's definitely it's not going to even probably affect the gold market in too much of a way, to be honest.
Jerry goes, silly Mike, all I drink is vodka. Oh, gosh.
Good old Prapov.
Oh, gosh. But actually, Tom, back to gold. It has been on a pretty nice uptrend over the past couple weeks. Like, I know we've been watching it for months, and it was just last week when it finally broke out. So, all in all, gold, it's not going to move like Tesla or AMD or even the market. It's just like, over the long term, historically, it's just like a nice, slow and steady way to get a small return on your money, and then it also hedges inflation too. So, that's cool and all, but lately it has been moving up in a pretty big way.
Yeah, it has. It's been breaking out. I know gold was honestly consolidating for a long time around support. Like GLD kept bouncing around this like 161 level. It touched it multiple times. We finally broke out above that upper trend line here, and we actually confirmed off of it before moving back, which was nice to see. But either way, I mean, gold's just been doing very, very well here. Obviously, the inflation news might kind of started the uptrend with gold, and then Russia came in and just made gold straight up explode pretty much. So I don't know. It sucks to see gold going up because of all the Russian news. It obviously hurt some other stocks, but it's definitely good as a hedge, especially with the Feds like raising rates and stuff, and with inflation going up. I felt like it was a good hedge, at least for the next like couple of months. It might still be a pretty decent one. Keep in mind, gold is at a big resistance. GLD's consolidating around $180 again. And if we look at /GC, the gold futures are sitting right around their upper resistance as well, around 1960. So definitely some big resistance that we're at. But I would say as long as Russia keeps up their antics, gold will have a good chance to break out.
Yep. And then like Jerry kind of like compared GLD's, I guess you could say, stability to like the stability of Coca-Cola shares. And yeah, they're pretty similar in that sense. One major difference is like if the U.S. economy really slows down, obviously that would hurt Coca-Cola. But gold is just something that's used all over the world. So one pro, and I guess you can say a con in certain circumstances, is that GLD and gold prices a lot of times are not correlated to the market. The correlations are always changing, as we all know, but like we can see that over like the past couple of months especially, GLD basically has had no correlation to the market overall. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it really is, because I know that for a while there, like during COVID and stuff, GLD obviously exploded and then started coming down. But over like the past few months, sometimes it seemed like that gold was like following the market, because I remember for a while there, Mike, a lot of traders were like, hey, I'm going to hedge against the market and buy gold. And then gold was like going up with the market or going down with the market at that time. And everybody was like, man, like what's going on, But it definitely is always changing, like we say. And right now, with all these tensions going on, it definitely is starting to inverse it a little bit. As the Spce's been popping down, gold's been starting to come up a little bit. So I've been glad to see that, at least over the past couple weeks. But it just depends on how that's going to stay. And I feel like that the tensions are a pretty big deal, because obviously gold is pretty big whenever there's fear. Like generally fear is what drives gold. So hopefully we see the fears start to subside, and maybe the market will pop back up. And hey, Mike, as long as DraftKings goes up, I'll be I don't care if gold goes back down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jerry said, would you say GLD is the best hedge against inflation? I would say it's one of the best. GLD, you can get like GLD and SLV for gold and silver ETFs, but you can also just buy physical gold and silver. Like that can be pretty good too. Of course, real estate is a nice hedge too, but I would say like a mix of maybe GLD and SLV Shares are pretty good, and then it doesn't hurt to get some physical gold and silver either. And then Jerry also said, oh, gold is more correlated to fear than inflation. Yes and no. I mean, like Tom said, fear drives gold up in the short term, especially as we've been seeing over the past couple weeks. But at the end of the day, like, gold is just like a natural hedge against inflation. And then, if there's like a lot of fear in the world, in the markets overall, we historically have seen more buyers come into place to make the prices rise even more. So if I were you, I'd look at it like this. Either way, gold and silver they move up as inflation moves up, but when crazy, scary things happen, they tend to move up more because more people are scared and they're flocking into those assets.
Yeah, exactly. And they feel like that those assets will just be a little bit safer than the overall market, especially whenever we look at stuff like the S&P 500. Sure, this pullback has been humongous. Obviously, it's been a pretty big one, but like whenever we look over the past couple of years, like there's still, I feel like a lot of levels that we could fall down to. I know that it's unlikely that the Spce is going to get down to $400 or something, but with the way that we've been pulling back and the way that things have been going, I wouldn't be surprised. I know that the Fed is still scheduled to raise rates pretty soon. We actually have Powell speaking later in the week, so that's going to be pretty telling. If he's more hawkish and we see the market dip down on that, who knows? Maybe that'll be a bad sign for the market in the short term again. And like we talked about, even today, the market's holding up well, but we still don't necessarily think that we're back in the clear. There's still a lot of tensions going on, and obviously it could always turn back around like we've been seeing over the past few weeks. It definitely turns around more often than you'd think.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, I would love for the market to just go straight up to highs, but clearly that's unlikely to happen. And it's just tough because over the past month or two especially, it's like, yeah, Tom, we might have a good open, we might have a good first couple hours, but then it's like the next thing you know, it's like a couple hours later, maybe close to the end of the day or close to market close, it's like the market just goes into free fall, and there have been multiple examples of this, over the past couple weeks and the past couple months. So I just figured it was worth pointing out because it seems like this has been a recurring pattern lately.
Yeah, it definitely has, and it's a good thing to watch. And I know that people have been also watching, the Jen Psaki speeches that she gives every day, like the White House correspondent speech. So those have been interesting as well. I know she's been giving some insights into Biden's thoughts on the whole situation. And also Biden was speaking last week and actually made the market pop back up, at least for a little while there. So that was good. Sometimes we're seeing the market move as some of these guys are speaking, and different reports have been coming out, obviously moving the markets a lot lately. So definitely smart to keep that in mind, Mike, because it can always turn around. Seems like they can just flip the light switch and make the market drop whenever they want at this point with the way the media controls the news.
Yep. Alrighty. So I just did a quick scan, Tom. Actually, never mind. I was looking at RTX's options, and some of the calls on RTX are up 156% today. And then I was looking at RTX for a potential breakout play, but it actually it's not even close to its high of day.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it looks like it is recovering back up though, which is nice. I mean, it might be a good type of recovery play, but the setup's definitely not grade A. We'd rather see it breaking out, kind of like DraftKings was earlier in the morning. I feel like that was a little bit better of a setup, but in the end, I mean, it's always good to see these defense stocks up. I know that other ones like Lockheed are still holding their ground. It looks like Lockheed has actually recovered up quite a bit. I wonder how Boeing's doing, because I know that they're a bit of a mix. They're into the commercial and the military contracts, but it looks like Boeing is just kind of falling down today. It looks like Boeing's following more of the cruise lines and airlines. I know that AAL is also down, so definitely not good for Boeing there. But yeah, it's good to see the other defense stocks recovering up. I mean, even Northrop recovered, so maybe we will see RTX start to pop back up here over the next few minutes.
Yeah, we shall see. So what else do we have going on, Tom? I feel like we covered a lot of the growth plays. Are you seeing any interesting setups, any interesting plays, anything?
One of my favorite ones is honestly Matterport right now. I know that we've been talking about Matterport a lot over the past few months, but honestly, they've been kind of off the radar. You know, they haven't been recovering up as much as some of the other growth plays, but over the past few days, they've been doing pretty well. On the 5-minute chart today, they're actually holding up very well. They're up like 4%, almost 5% here. They're breaking out up above that $7 resistance, which is also a nice whole dollar level for them. So I'm really glad to see them holding up. I know that other growth plays have been doing decent. Enphase is honestly leading my watch list now, Mike, up 6.4%. They're doing very well, even better than Teladoc is. Teladoc started to pull back a little bit here. I know they had that great news with Amazon, and I was hoping to see them start to recover. So maybe keep your eye on them, because I feel like that was some pretty good news with Amazon. And who knows, if we see the rest of the growth stocks keep going up, I feel like Teladoc might start turning it back around, because as we know, Mike, I mean, those deals with Amazon are pretty big, and I would have expected this one to maybe have better movement.
Yeah. And then George mentioned how like Bitcoin's on the rise. He mentioned MARA, Riot, and Coinbase, and how they're all moving up, as well as just Bitcoin by itself. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin's definitely popping up lately, which is good to see. It's been all over the place, just like a lot of other assets have been over the past couple months.
Yeah, it really is. And I'll tell you what, like Mara is forming a really good support around $20, which is great to see. It's crazy to see all those bounces off of $20. Like that's a lot of bounces in the past. So it seems like a lot of buyers keep coming into this one at $20. I will say be careful, because we've seen a lot of growth stocks continue to break their supports lately. So hopefully, obviously Bitcoin keeps going up and these supports hold, but lately we've been seeing a lot of these supports get broken. So be careful of that. But Riot's also forming a good support here around like $13, which is nice. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see it. You know, Bitcoin's doing very well, as you mentioned, Mike, forming a good bottom, and we're honestly hovering right around 40K. Like, it would be very nice if we could start to break back out above that. I know 40K was a pretty big level there that we fell below, so I'm glad to see that we're consolidating here.
Yep. Alrighty. What else do we have moving right now? It looks like Jerry said, have you seen Tesla today? Yeah, I've been watching it a little bit in the background, but I haven't been following it like too much. But it's up 4% today, Tom. And what'd they do? Just break above that? Is that the 500 SMA?
Yeah, it actually broke out above the 1,000 SMA on the 5-minute chart here, which is great. The 1,000 is a pretty big level here. Obviously, the 1,000 is like the furthest SMA that I use on the chart. Some people use like the 1,500 and stuff, but generally the 1,000 is a pretty big level. We can see like on the daily chart, Tesla hasn't been near that red 1,000 in a long time. So that shows how much growth they've had. But on the 5-minute, yeah, it's nice to see them breaking above that. They're heading they're actually sitting right around that 840 resistance, which is nice. So maybe we'll see a breakout above that pretty soon. But yeah, Mike, I mean, Tesla's doing very well. They're very explosive today, as well as other EV plays. I know that NIO has been doing great today. Lucid's been kind of running up ahead of earnings. They're not doing the best, but they're definitely running in a good way. Tesla's definitely leading the way, though, in my opinion. It's definitely breaking out well, and I'm really glad to see that it broke some of these good resistances. Like, we broke 820 this morning, which was nice. Now we're sitting up around 840, so definitely some good movement here.
Awesome. Yeah, and then like we were just talking about Bitcoin and stuff, I was looking at like Bitcoin futures and then just like a chart of Bitcoin, and I feel like more than anything, the whole cryptocurrency setup right now looks more like the growth stock setup than anything else. Like, we can see, Bitcoin fell significantly from its highs, and it's just like kind of like bottoming out, just like a lot of these growth stocks are.
Yeah, it is actually. It kind of almost reminds me of a setup almost like an Enphase. Like, if we look at Enphase, it's starting to double bottom down here, and we've pretty much been falling ever since the beginning of December. So if we look at Bitcoin, it's pretty much been falling since, like right around the beginning of December, maybe a little bit earlier. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been moving more like the growth stocks, in my opinion, Mike. And what's been kind of crazy is that a lot of people had been saying all year long that Bitcoin was the next gold. Bitcoin is the next hedge against the market, but it looks like it's just almost like a growth play, obviously. It's been following a lot of the growth stocks, and it's definitely not moving with gold, that's for sure.
Yeah, true that. Another one that's kind of breaking out is SPCE. It's only up 2%, but it's definitely back on the uptrend over like the past couple days. The other week they just had so much like positive momentum with their like the flight, or not the flight, but the what do you call it, the reservations announcement.
Yeah, that was big for them whenever they announced that. They're actually on track with their commercial release. So that's great to see. I know that a lot of companies have been pushing things back lately a lot, especially with all like the chip delays and stuff, but it's good to see that they're still on track. And I know that they came out with that price point, Mike, around $450,000 per flight, which is insane. And you have a $150,000 down deposit to reserve your spot. So it's at least good to see that they've been announcing some great numbers. But it does seem like that is pretty expensive, Mike. But I guess to go into space, like, let's be honest, for some of these millionaires, 450,000 isn't too much for them. So I guess for like a once in a lifetime thing, that's going to be awesome. But who knows? It's great to see SPCE running, and I hope it continues. It'll make for some pretty good trading over the next few months. I know that SPCE, whenever it starts running, sometimes in the past, this one has really went up. Like, look at this max daily chart, Mike. Like, we talk about volatility. This stock it's doubled and then fallen by almost like 60% and then risen and doubled again. And then now it's down like 60% again. Like, the way this stock has moved is just absolutely insane. And that should, though, keep in mind, guys, that should show you how risky this one is, because it can definitely turn around on you fast.
Yep. Alrighty. So we have Sam talking about like Tesla, and he said 2 weeks till Germany Gigafactory opens. He said the Austin, Texas Gigafactory comes online later, so Tesla should be around like 50% growth around the corner. So yeah, they have some big things in the works. I know that the stock valuation is definitely pricing in a lot of, I guess you can say, like, just good additions with Tesla. So should be interesting, but either way, it has been fading over the past couple weeks and months, as a lot of stocks have been. But it's looking pretty decent today.
Yeah, it's looking very good. And those innovations that they've been doing are awesome, like those gigafactories. Obviously, they're going to start rolling out that Tesla truck eventually. And once they start rolling that truck out, I think Tesla will start doing very good as far as their revenue and their fundamentals go, because that truck has so much reservations for it. And I feel like it's so innovative with its design, with everything it's capable of as far as one motor per wheel and different stuff like that. I just think it's such a cool setup, the way that they have that truck. And, there's a bunch of tools on there that can kind of help workers out in the field as well. Like, you can use that electric battery to run power tools, and there's like generators and stuff like that. So it's definitely a really cool thing. And I know that it's kind of neat for camping and stuff like that too. And it can even do off-roading stuff. So it's an insane thing, but I think that'll really help their company once they start coming out with that. And Mike, what's also been kind of good for Tesla, not necessarily Tesla, but at least for Elon Musk, is that he's also been helping out Ukraine lately. He's been using the Starlink system to help out the Ukrainian government and to help Ukrainian citizens still get internet access, which is a pretty cool thing to see. I know that most billionaires wouldn't just start devoting their assets to that out of nowhere. So it's cool to see him kind of helping out there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Alrighty, so I'm just trying to find some plays that are moving, Tom. Like we talked about some of the growth plays earlier in the stream. How about we check back in on them? We always talk about DraftKings and stuff like that. So DraftKings was looking pretty great at open. It pulled back just a little bit, but it's still in the green, which is good, but we still have a decent amount of resistance overhead. In terms of resistance, Tom, what are you seeing with DraftKings?
Yeah, actually, like at market open, we ran up into one of my resistance lines that I had on the chart around 22.50, and then I have another one around 23. So I would say there's a pretty stiff resistance between like somewhere between $22.50 and $23. Obviously, it's been pretty hard to trade DraftKings lately. Like, for example, we started breaking out this morning, and then we pulled right back down. Like I said, 22 to 23 will be a pretty good intraday resistance, I think. If we can start to break out, I would say above that high of just after pre-market around like 22.72, I think we could start to see a pretty good run. But as far as it goes, Mike, it's consolidating here right around that $22 level. It looks like 22 is forming a pretty good support. I know that was a pretty good resistance before we passed above it. So definitely look at 22 as a good support, and then $21 is a good support after that. But I mean, it's definitely consolidating this morning. We're not seeing the type of breakout momentum that, we were hoping for at open. So maybe we'll see it start to turn around here. And honestly, it's setting up pretty decently, I think. Like on the 5-minute chart, the way we're holding at $22 is pretty good in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And of course, it's not like it's moving in an insane way today, but still, I mean, over the past couple days, it had one great recovery from the bottom. Like just a couple days ago, it was at like $16.50, and now we're back above 22. So that's good to see. I mean, it looks like we basically recovered from the drop down from that earnings report, which was, irrational in my opinion, but we're back above the pre-earnings level.
Yeah, we are. And that's actually like where we're sitting right now is just about like a 35% increase from around $16.50. If we went from the lows, we'd be definitely above 35% right now on the uptrend over just a few days. So that's a pretty big like move out of a stock like DraftKings, Mike. 35% in just a couple days. I know that most of it was from that earnings report, but still, I mean, for any stock to move that much is pretty good. And we've been seeing a lot of these growth stocks recover up like this. And look at it on the 5-minute, Mike. We're actually almost back to those pre-market highs now, and we're sitting like right around 22.50. So hopefully we keep running and we start to break out. I think it'll make for some good movement. And even these defense stocks are starting to move back up into the green, like Lockheed Martin moving up in a pretty good way. I know you were talking about Raytheon earlier, Mike, RTX, and they're still kind of recovering up too.
Yeah, very true. Okay, and then let's see. I mean, it looks like the cruise lines and like the airlines are taking a hit today. That industry is just getting smacked right now. Some other plays that are struggling, or some other stocks, are like actually Apple, Tom. Like Apple's not tanking, but it is down 1%, which is pretty tough to see. And when we have companies like Apple, trading lower to the downside, not only is it bad for the big tech stocks, but it'll also just, sprinkle in some more bearish sentiment across like the Spce and other indices that Apple has a heavy weighting in.
Yeah, it's definitely not good to see that. It definitely weighs into other stocks, like you mentioned. Microsoft's kind of pushing back to the downside as well. Definitely not good to see there. I know that it's just not good. I know that a lot of these tech stocks are starting to turn back over. Some of the bigger ones like AMD are also now back in the red after they were in the green. Nvidia's back in the red. Not good. So definitely not the best movement today. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, we'll even have big stocks like Amazon down in the red. So not good to see. Some big banks are in the red too, like Bank of America. JP Morgan's actually continually making new daily lows. They're actually almost below the low of last week at this point. So some of these banks on the daily chart, Mike, are pulling back in a pretty big way. Honestly, kind of reminds me of like a setup like Tesla or something, but hopefully we see these banks turn around soon. It's definitely not good to see them pulling back the way they are. I know a lot of people in the banking industry have been pretty bullish on banks, but it looks like they're actually turning around. So I don't know. I mean, I guess time will tell, but Bank of America and JP Morgan are approaching major supports. JP Morgan is almost down to 140. Bank of America almost down to that level right around like 42. So crazy movement, Mike. I can't believe the banks are down this much.
Yeah, I think part of it has to do with how the market is pricing in like less of a rate hike in the short term. You remember like the Fed rate tool? Remember how like how that dropped off significantly, and rising rates do help bank stocks. So maybe with the market being like, hey, with all these geopolitics going on and all this crazy stuff going on, Powell might say, all right, we're just gonna raise rates, but not as much as everyone was expecting.
Yeah, and it's insane to see how JP Morgan dropped on their last earnings report so drastically. Like that was insane to see, and you're right. Like the rate hike news is probably affecting them in a bad way. So definitely a big deal there. And that's going to be big for banks later in the week whenever Powell speaks, Mike. Like that's going to be a pretty big deal actually now.
Yeah, we will see. But yeah, I mean, we covered everything, Tom. Do you have any last-minute plays or anything you're watching before we wrap up the stream?
Yeah, like you mentioned, those airlines are just getting killed today. I hope to see some of them turn back around. Like Delta is just getting destroyed, down like 5%. I mean, it's not terrible because we had such a great move to the upside last week, but it's definitely bad movement. Like, it just continually moving lower. It's like Delta is in a similar setup to like JP Morgan today, actually. They're just both making daily lows and moving back to those lows of last week. So I hate to see that, but at the same time, like, some of those growth stocks are doing very well. I know that like Enphase, for example, is still looking well. They're up there around those highs of over 7%, which is nice. I know we haven't talked about Clover in a long time, but they're actually breaking out. They had a nice run from earnings last week, and they're starting to move up in a major way. This one is definitely not a stock I've played recently, but hey, it's breaking out above those highs of last week, so it might be a pretty good thing to eye up today. But yeah, I mean, lots of the growth stocks are doing well. Like we mentioned, DraftKings is starting to run back up, so maybe we'll see a nice continuation. If we continue to see the growth stocks go up, might make for some pretty good day trades today. So definitely keep growth on the radar. I would say those are the main ones to look at. Whenever we look at even like the SPY today, I don't think I'd really touch it. It's not really doing much. And like we've mentioned, Mike, like some of the bigger stocks like Apple just also are starting to pull back. So honestly, I would almost eye up the SPY for maybe a play to the downside later on.
Yep. All right. So we have Raymond saying, what do you think about a swing trade on UHS and PGRE to the downside? Both of these stocks had giant moves to the upside recently. And they're not bad in this type of market. In situations in markets like we saw a year or two ago when everything just constantly blasts to the upside, I would not short plays like this. But in the current market, these setups are not bad. We've been seeing basically anything with any upwards momentum just get completely rejected over the past couple of weeks and months. So I would say they're not bad setups. If we do see a crazy parabolic breakout with them, just make sure that you do have, some sort of exit strategy in place. But overall, I would say these are not bad setups.
Yeah, they're not terrible he's looking at him to the upside for a continuation on the breakout, right?
No, he's looking at him to the downside, Tom, for a rejection.
Okay. That's almost what I was thinking, because I was going to say, to be honest, they're kind of getting rejected here. I will say, PGRE just got rejected on a pretty big resistance here from the past, right around $11.60 to $12. Looks like it's also hitting right on that 1,000 SMA, Mike, which is very interesting. I know that we mentioned the 1,000 even earlier, and the 1,000 has been a pretty big level lately for a lot of stocks. So definitely weird to see it bouncing off of that. And what was the other ticker?
The other ticker was UHS.
UHS, yeah, United Health. United Health is also right on that big resistance level, right at $150 even. So I think it's not a bad setup either, Mike. I think PGRE is a little bit better in my opinion, but honestly, I think they're both setting up pretty well.
Yep, we'll see. All right, so Iranical said, when you enter a trade at the opening, 15 minutes after opening, my mind for a day trade. So I don't understand your question, Iranical. There are many different strategies to deploy if you're looking for momentum plays. I mean, it just depends, and I don't fully understand your question. So if you could clarify that, I would appreciate it. But I do want to thank everyone for joining today. So thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you, George, Sean, Vicky, Alex, Hunter, Michael, Mike, Neighbor Jay, Bill, Jerry, and Sam, and Iranical, Raymond, and Head. Thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. The market has been all over the place, and we live in a crazy world with all these geopolitical events going on. So hopefully hopefully just all of the fear and uncertainty calm down, and hopefully everything, I guess you could say, returns back to normal. But in the meantime, the market is very volatile, so definitely be prepared for that. But other than that, thank you guys so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.